Last week I was talking to a friend of mine who spent the last year trying to reshape his life. He's taken on some big goals and committed to some big changes, and we were catching up on how that's going. And while he's been very busy, he's actually not that much farther ahead than where he was last year. And this is because every new opportunity that shows up, he takes. And these are small opportunities that aren't necessarily aligned with where he wants to go. And in the moment, he's able to justify why he took each of these opportunities, but they really just don't move him closer to his ultimate goals. And so this pattern that I talked about with him is that his important things keep waiting while all the immediate things get all his time. And this pattern shows up everywhere. It shows up in work, in relationships, and in fitness. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Daniel Steamer. I'm a multi-certified endurance sports coach specializing in running for adults. I've personally run over 130 races, including 3 marathons, 2 ultras, 4 half Ironman, and I'm currently training for my first full Ironman later this year. And on top of all that, I coach everyday adult athletes from their first race to their biggest adventures. So most people who want change, especially change in their fitness, mean it when they say it. But then the week fills up. There's 100 other things they say yes to that get in the way. They stay up late working on something so they don't end up going on a morning run the next day. They have a very social Saturday that leaves them way too drained for a long run on Sunday. Every fun run or group activity they do while being fitness oriented doesn't move them closer to their specific goal. Most people make these types of trade-offs all the time, saying yes to things that don't move them towards their goal without even realizing they're making these trade-offs. And that's where we see a big gap between what people say they want and what people do to get what they want. Now, to be clear, one missed run is nothing. One social event instead of a training session is no big deal. One off week where you don't move aggressively towards your goals is going to be part of the process. But an ongoing pattern of saying yes to unnamed trade-offs always leads to the same result. The goal never gets any closer. You end up with the race you've wanted to do that keeps getting pushed to next year. You end up with numbers on the scale never changing. You end up not developing the fitness level for the activities you want to do. And that's the real cost of this pattern. Waking up a year from now in the same place, wondering why nothing's changed. Most people treat priorities like a list of things that matters. Family, work, friends, fitness, finances. But these are really things they value. Priorities show themselves in the decisions you make, not in the things you declare are important to you. When two things are competing for your time or energy, the one you pick is the one you prioritize. And that's more honest than any list of values you have, because it's what you actually do with your limited resources. If fitness is a priority for you, that shows up in your decisions. The workout that gets done, even if you have a busy schedule. The recovery that gets protected because it's important to you. The race that goes on the calendar because it means something to you. So back to my friend. He actually has a really ambitious and compelling goal. I've talked to him about it many times. And he has a solid plan on how to get there and what types of skills he needs to develop. But the small opportunities keep showing up, and that's what he picks, prioritizing the small-term successes they offer over the long-term investment for the thing he actually wants to build. But the small opportunities keep distracting him from that because they offer something that pays off today instead of building towards his vision, which is measured in months, not moments. And I see this all the time with runners who want to train for races. Some of these athletes are people I work with. They commit to something, they start the training block, but then they prioritize late nights over a good night's sleep. They prioritize social events over long runs. And interesting events today get prioritized over the commitment they made for something bigger in the future. In all cases, everybody's working hard. They're just not working towards the things they said mattered for them. So their goals ultimately stay out of reach. After hearing all this, if you're wondering if your priorities are aligned to get you where you want to go, do this small test. Look back at your last week and the choices you made and ask whether it reflects where you're trying to go. If most of your time last week was spent doing things like scrolling on your phone or binge watching TV, then your priorities are probably not very aligned for where you want to go. Now, on the other hand, if you're busy doing important stuff that matters to you, like work, like family time, like spending time with friends, then it's worth a deeper examination around your priorities. Are those more important than getting to your goals? Or is there things that you might want to trade off a little bit? Because at the end of the day, it's not about what you intended last week, but what you did that determines where you went. And the tricky part here is that it's easy in the moment to justify the yeses that we should say no to. It's easy when that alarm goes off early in the morning to say, you know what, I want to just sleep in today. I can get to this later. It's easy to say yes to an invite to a social event and skip your training session. It's easy to scroll on your phone instead of go for a run when it's hot outside. We can justify them very easily in the moment. It's only when we look back at how our time was spent that we really get a solid picture of what our priorities actually are and how we're living our life. And so this is a big part of something I do with a lot of the athletes I work with, is we name their goal in the future and we talk about the trade-offs they're going to have to make to achieve that goal. What are they going to do on the weekends when their runs require 2 to 3 hours of training? What are they going to do when their work gets busy, but they still need to do training during the middle of the week? It's very helpful ahead of time to look at how things are going to potentially play out to have your priorities clear. The athletes who do that exercise and name their priorities and name how they'll make decisions when certain scenarios play up are the ones that are going to have the most success. So just one last thing on my friend. After we talked last week, he reflected on his priorities and he refocused some of his time. And he spent just a few hours since we talked working on his goal. And you know what? He's now a little bit closer to it. His week reflects what's important to him. The things you say yes to each week is the most accurate assessment of what you actually prioritize. So, were your yeses last week pointed at the things you say you want? My goal with this channel is simple: to provide adult athletes with the information they need to train well and live their biggest adventures.